The rich people do this and broke people don't, and that's to decrease that the wealthy use debt to buy assets that pay income, whereas the broke, they use debt to buy things that don't produce income. What the wealthy do that the poor don't is they track their spending. People who are successful in money and wealth are also successful in their health and in their relationships. So straight away I can see a red flag if someone's overweight, unhealthy, they don't have a good relationship. I know straight away they're going to be poor business partners and I wouldn't want to do deals with them. The one thing that successful millionaires do that broke people don't is...
I'm Lloyd James Ross, seven-figure investor and entrepreneur, and I've helped thousands of business owners and professionals turn financial stress into success. If you're stuck in old money habits, overwhelmed by investing, or unsure where to start, this is for you. I'll give you the mindset and strategies to take control, grow your wealth, and achieve financial freedom. It's time to make your money work for you.
You see it every day. Two people making the same salary, yet one is financially free while the other one is drowning in debt. One drives a paid off car and has investments working for them. The other one is stuck in a cycle of paycheck to paycheck for survival. At first it seems unfair. How is it possible? They both have access to the same financial opportunities, yet their bank accounts tell a completely different story. And the truth hits you. It's not about how much they earn, it's about how they think and what they do with their money. The broke person spends everything they make, swiping their credit card, instant gratification, buying things that lose value the second they leave the store. They think saving is enough, ignoring the fact that inflation is eating away at their cash. They rely on debt, thinking about, oh, I'll pay it later. Whereas the rich, they play a different game. They make their money work for them, investing in assets that grow over time. They understand that every dollar is either a soldier working for their financial freedom or a slave to their bad habit. The worst part, most people never even realize they're trapped. They follow the same habits they were taught, spend what they earn, avoid investing because it's risky, and believe that more income is the only way out. But that's why they stay broke. Because wealth isn't built by earning more, it's built by thinking differently about money and using it the right way. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the 7 habits that rich people do that broke people don't. And so buckle up. As I talk through each one, I'm going to give you the example of how I've applied this to my life so you can see that this isn't just something I've pulled from ChatGPT. So let's go from number 1. 1, rich people take calculated risks. And what people who are broke seem to think is that risk taking is completely off the table. But life is a risk. When you walk out your front door every day, you're taking a risk. When you stay indoors every day, you're taking a risk. There is risk to everything. So the whole process of getting wealthy is not about avoiding risk like most people think. It's actually by taking calculated risks. And by not taking risks, staying in that safe job, staying in safety and security, you're not actually avoiding risk, you're just taking a different risk. The risk that nothing will change and the risk that you will actually die broke. So there is risk in everything, you just have to decide on which risk to take. And there's this process in investing that the very mega wealthy use. It's called the Dando principle. And they look for what's called asymmetric returns. Opportunities where there's absolutely massive upside, but very limited downside. So the old saying goes, you want to look for investments and opportunities and take risks where, boom, heads I win, tails I don't lose that much. Whereas broke people think that when you take a risk, it's always, oh, heads I win, tails I lose everything. That is not effective risk taking. That's called gambling. If you want to do that, go to the casino and go and play roulette because that's what that is. But investing and building wealth is not avoiding risk. It's actually being able to see and identify that you can play a roulette table where the odds of you winning are almost 100%. And that's the type of investment you want to participate in. And I think of wonderful high quality assets that you can do that with, like certain businesses, stocks, real estate, and things you can do with your career that have got very limited downsides. Like when I started into network marketing, I realized very quickly that there was a huge upside, but very limited downside because if I sucked at it, which I did when I first started, nothing bad could happen. So I thought this is an asymmetric return opportunity, and that's why I said yes to it and went for it. So that's an example of what you look for. Heads I win, tails I don't lose too much. The second thing that rich people do that broke people don't is that they actually invest a large percentage of their income in investments. And it's more than just the 10%. In The Richest Man in Babylon, you do learn that paying yourself first 10% is critical, and it is. But really what I tried to do was I tried to invest as much as I could, and wealthy people actually try and invest like 50% of their income. As much as you can get in early, the better. Charlie Munger has this saying, he had this saying before he passed away, the first 100,000 is a bitch, but you got to do it. And what that means is the faster you can get in the 100K into your investments or in cash, the better it'll compound over time. The earlier you can start compounding, the better. So I understood this concept. So when I was living in Dubai, I was about 23 years of age. I had a job there. I was earning about 70 to 80,000 a year. And I knew I had to keep my costs very low and invest 50% of my income either in myself, building my skills, or in buying assets like shares. So how did I do that? Well, one of the things I did was, while everyone was buying cars, I went and rented a Toyota Yaris. Now, I don't know if you've ever driven a Toyota Yaris, but it's very emasculating. It's very unsexy. And so I copped that on the chin. I'm this guy driving this little Toyota Yaris, leased Yaris, up and down the highway. I went through 7 Toyota Yarises because I just ran him into the ground. But every time I ran into the ground, I got another one. So I didn't lose from depreciation of buying a nice car. I just rented a crappy car, went through them, and I kept my costs low. What else I did was we rented an apartment in Dubai, and I shared with 2 other roommates. I didn't have to, but I did. I shared with 2 other roommates. We had a little media room, and we even rented that out. Like, we rented out as much as we could because we wanted to minimize our costs of rent. And so I kept my car costs low, my rent costs low. I didn't travel a lot back then because I wanted to build up that 100K that Charlie Munger said to do as fast as possible. And that's why I was able to, at an early age, invest 50% of everything I own. And to this day, for example, if we were to earn $1 million, my objective would be, and has been, to invest half of that. So I'm very aggressive with how much income I actually invest on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And it is as close to 50% as I can get. Because right now, the reality is, I could probably go and buy 6 or 7 or 8 Lamborghinis for cash, easily. But it's not about buying those things. I'm trying to compound and build the wealth by continuing to invest 50%. Because I'm only 41, I've got another 25 years of massive compounding to get after it. Because after that, it's massively generational wealth. So you can take your gas off it when you get to 100K, but you got to go for it. So 50% of everything you earn, you should be trying to save. And I know what you're going to say, oh, Lloyd, but I'm scratching around trying to get money. Well, that tells me that you're not earning enough, which tells me you're not spending your evenings and weekends working on things that are going to bring you more money. You're spending too much time at leisure. And I know that sucks because you feel like you're working your ass off, but the truth of the matter is, what are you really doing in that time? Because if you're looking to make money, spend the time doing that instead of spending it, okay?
Just quickly, if you're ready to take control of your finances but feel stuck on where to start, I have a solution. My book, Money Bias Happiness, simplifies investing and wealth building with practical steps to help you achieve financial peace. Get your copy via the link in the show notes and let's get your money working for you. Now back to the episode.
So number 3, the wealthy use debt to buy assets that pay income. Whereas the broke, they use debt to buy things that don't produce income. So if you're broke, it's mainly because perhaps you're using debt like Afterpay, credit cards, or whatever it might be to buy things and stuff that doesn't produce for you. And this is how you accumulate massive amounts of debt without generating more income. On the flip side, the wealthy will use debt to buy income producing assets. So think, for example, of a property investment. Let's say it's $1 million, you borrow 800,000, you put a deposit in, and that particular property pays for its own debt repayment over time without you touching it. And over time, that property will grow in value, hopefully, and it'll pay itself off and you'll have a cash cow. That's an example of leveraging other people's money, OPM, to buy property. Now, how we did that recently for ourselves, there was a small business that we could buy, a laundromat business. Yeah, it was like $250,000 to buy. And we noticed the cash flow from it was producing about 40% net return, okay, after costs, which is a great business. And because it was 40% return, we could go to the bank and we borrowed all the money from the bank. In fact, we borrowed 100%, a little bit more than 100%, because we had to pay for stamp duty for the business and legal fees. But we borrowed the whole amount, and the amount we're paying back the bank is about 8.5% to 9%. So we're generating 40% in income from the business, and we're paying out 9% to the bank. So that's a very simple way to see, well, why wouldn't we borrow someone else's money? And our money is still in other investments producing for us a high rate of return. So it was better to use the bank's money for 8 or 9% cost to buy a 40% asset than use our own. Does that make sense? So that's a way where you can identify certain deals to actually borrow money to actually get income producing assets instead of just buying clothes and buying weddings and travel, all right? The next thing, number 4, the rich people don't do too much of anything. So when you work out something that's working, they don't just like bet the house on it. They'll bet up to a certain point and they'll let it do its thing. So too much of a good thing can be a problem because it makes sense until it doesn't. So what they won't do is always bet everything on one thing. They won't diversify a lot, but when something works, they don't just try and repeat it over and over again. So at some point it will change and they have to pivot, right? So they'll look for other opportunities outside just the one thing. This is a little bit different to focusing on one business, but they don't do too much of anything, right, when it comes to deals. Number 5, rich people do this, poor people don't. That's to decrease their taxes legally. So if you don't have a great accountant, I would encourage you to get one, because by decreasing your taxes, you're literally increasing the amount of money that's in your bank account at the end of every single year, which gives you free cash flow to buy assets, pay down debt, and do different things with it. But if you're just willy-nilly going through life without understanding where your taxes are going or how much you're paying, you're really leaving a lot of money on the table. So a good accountant will tell you what expenses are tax deductible for business purposes, and you will be able to reduce your personal tax if you own things like property investments in your personal name and other things like businesses, provided it is a business expense within the laws of the tax legislation. So start talking to your accountant about reducing your taxes, because you can reduce it. And Kerry Packer, the famous multi-billionaire from Australia before he died, he said that I don't know anyone who's smart who doesn't want to reduce their taxes, because we give the government a certain amount and they're not doing such a great job of spending it that we want to give them any more. So he said that people that don't reduce their taxes should have their head read. That's a quote from him, right? So for you, I would encourage you to do that too. And every year or every quarter, actually, I sit with my accountant and we make sure that we're taking advantage of all the tax legislation available to business owners to make sure that we're not paying more tax than we don't need to. And a good accountant will help you do that with relative ease, okay? Number 6, what the wealthy do that the poor don't is they track their spending. You might think this is ridiculously simple, but you know how many people I talk to that want to get wealthy, but they have no idea where their money's going every single month. So no matter how wealthy people get, you still have to keep your finger on the pulse. It doesn't matter how, I know billionaires, one particular billionaire who lives here locally, probably worth about $10 to $12 billion. And I know for a fact that he still will look and write most of the checks in the business, because he still needs to see how much money is coming in and going out. Because when you know that data, you can decide on which deals you're going to take. So if you don't actually track your spending, like for example, if I didn't track my spending, I wouldn't know if we could buy that business. I wouldn't know if we can invest this into the stock market. I wouldn't know how much our business needs to go to the next level and scale with projects and team members coming on board, because I wouldn't know how much money was there. So if people aren't tracking their spending, how do you know what you have left to invest? How do you know what you have left to pay your credit cards off? You don't, because you don't actually know where your money's going. So a really important step for you to take is every month, sit down, look at your bank statement, do a basic table and figure out what's coming in, what's going out. If too much is going out than coming in, then change your behavior and stop spending bloody money. Just stop. Enough. Cut. And then look for ways to increase your income. Number 7, the 7th thing that millionaires do that broke people don't is that they actually invest in their well-being, all right? So as an example, yesterday I went for a massage because I knew today would be a long day with creating content. We just got back from a trip to Las Vegas and New Zealand on an airplane for many hours. And I thought this was a way to invest in my well-being. And my wife said, go. So she understands too to invest in her well-being and my well-being. And she makes sure that I do that, because success, it requires compounding. And compounding requires a long time. So to perform at your best and compete, money is a combat sport. To compete with all the other business owners and things happening in the world, you have to be at your best. You have to perform at your best. And to perform at your best means you've got to be healthy. You have to be energetic. You have to be alert. These things do matter when you're going into a negotiation, when you're shooting content, when you're doing sales, when you're running a business, when you're running a team, of all hours of the day and night, because we've got 4 businesses, 2 of them are fully international, so we have to be on the dial every single day at different times. Now, if I was having drugs and alcohol, I would be like way below my high performance rate. So it's like if you owned a thoroughbred racehorse that you wanted to win the Melbourne Cup, you wouldn't feed it a coffee and a pack of cigarettes before it raced. But that's what people are doing to their bodies. And they're expecting to win the Melbourne Cup without looking after their bodies. So the best way to do that is to start looking after what you're eating, cut out the alcohol, certainly cut out any drugs. If you're doing drugs and smoking weed and stuff like that, you're gonna not be able to compete with other people. So find some help, move past those addictions, and hang around people who are healthy, because really people who are successful in money and wealth are also successful in their health and in their relationships. So straight away I can see a red flag if someone's overweight, unhealthy, they don't have a good relationship. I know straight away they're going to be poor business partners and I wouldn't want to do deals with them. So think about how you're looking after your body, your relationships, and your money, and all of them will have an impact on the other. And it's one of the most underrated money hacks ever that wealthy people actually do that poor people don't. So that's 7. But the last bonus one I want to give you before you finish this is this. The one thing that successful millionaires do that broke people don't is they fall in love with the game. They're more attached to the process than the outcome. And there's a great saying that will help you with this. Marry the process of becoming a millionaire and divorce the outcome. If you do that, you'll go a lot further, because the old proverb says that the person who loves walking the most will always walk further than the person who doesn't. So they're the 7 habits that separate millionaires from those who are broke. And there's some examples there of how I've done them myself personally. So what I'd love to know is this. Which one is your favorite one that resonated with you the most? Tell me in the comments below, pop it below. I'll come and have a chat with you in the comments. Hit the subscribe button. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it, and go check out another video, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Money Grows on Trees. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if you're serious about building wealth, make sure to check out the links in the show notes and follow me on all social media platforms at Lloyd James Ross for more. See you in the next episode.